Welcome to the Virtual Film Company. Thanks for joining us for another show when we talk about technology, filmmaking, AI, and a whole mix of things that affects today's filmmakers. Today we're going to be talking about the turning point of the film industry. What has changed in the film industry and where is it going? This should be a great discussion. If you're in Spatial, please join us. If you're on YouTube, be sure to like and follow us on YouTube. We also have a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page. So any love you want to show the Virtual Film Company, we would appreciate it. So again, today the topic is the turning point of the film industry. And to start off the topic today, let's go to Chris.
Right. Yeah. I think in the film industry today, we can see a huge turning point, in my opinion. I mean, we already had several turning points here, and I think we all know that. We have constant change in this industry. I'm working also in this industry for, well, I think I started 30 years ago, approximately. And yeah. Today, with many new technologies, the big question is, where is all this going to? And I think there are a lot of points we have to talk about today. What do you say?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
A lot of points. And I think, one of the first ones is that, we look at today as being a era of disruption, but we forget that the film industry has continued to be disrupted by technology, and probably the most important disruptor of the last 100 years has been the television, which has really taken theater or public theater, people going to theater, and enabled people to watch films in their houses. And I think, as we'll be talking about later, that is definitely one of the contributing factors. But in my opinion, I think it's probably the most important factor, because if people didn't have televisions, they would be going to the theater. And
yeah, maybe they would have video beamers. No, I mean, it's a different thing when you think about the times when people had to go to the cinema to see something because there was no possibility to have a moving picture at home, right? That was definitely a different time. And think about the only real big competitor at the time, that was radio, right?
Yeah, no, very true. Yes. Yeah,
So
I think, over the years learned to communicate better. And, as you say, radio was one of the first methods used to disseminate information on a very, very large scale. And television took over shortly after that. I mean, people are so used to television these days that, one of my pet peeves is people that don't like silence. And so the first thing that they do when they walk into their
TV.
houses, turn on the TV. Yeah, it's like, why are you doing that? It's like, because you're not watching it, it's running in the background. And
well, it's a habit.
Yeah.
Some people watch TV when they fall asleep. They have things playing, and it's like, oh my gosh, are you really wanting to listen to that while you're sleeping? Even, yeah, they just are immersed in it.
So whatever we say about television, though, I don't think it affected the film industry in terms of turning it on its head. I think it affected the film industry by increasing the visibility into the industry, creating a need for more content. And, I really think that the television has driven the film industry in many parts. In fact, just before the show, we were talking about how serials or series are very popular. And, that's definitely a television thing, although people do go to movie theaters to see series as well.
Definitely. And on top of that, think about that the television made its own art form, right? when you did a movie for the big screen, let's say, you had a different type of taking pictures or a different speed, let's say, for your actors and how you drive the story. And television was definitely starting new types of movies, shorter ones maybe, right? Or the serials that were maybe sometimes just a sitcom for, what are they, 20 minutes? Right, when you told a story like that. So just the television technology itself had a huge impact on new types of developments in storytelling and how to film them. So yeah, we can discuss how new technologies maybe are a chance, right, to do something completely different.
But I definitely think it's a turning point when the TV came out. That's the first real big evolution. 'Cause, if you look back at numbers when movies came out, everybody was going to the movie. Everybody was going to the show. Now, when the TV comes out, this is a direct competitor. But again, yes, now they're allowing an experience for people to be consuming at any point in time. We just I just see it as it's a medium that just continually expands to where now I've never really been big on watching movies on my phone, but I know people even watch movies on their phone. Each their own.
Yeah, also not my thing.
Definitely an interesting experience, and I think that's a good segue here into slide 3, where we talk about the contributing factors to the, whether this is a turning point in the film industry. And I think, as you mentioned, Chris, and mystery about television, one of the things that we initially saw was the reduction in the, although, I mean, that's not really true, because when, film first started, obviously it was extremely short because of technical reasons, but then we did start seeing feature films, but as television came in, we started seeing a reduction in the length of films. And, one of the topics, or many of the topics that we're going to look at today, deal with how do some of these factors like length contribute to changes in the film industry. And, today we're seeing people basically glued to their phone watching TikTok and Facebook Reels and whatever. And I've been watching those recently myself, just to catch up on what people might be seeing. And wow, maybe I'm being overcritical here, but it seems to me like, and I think saying 70% of the content that I've seen on some of these short form channels is which I don't want to say garbage, but it's just being put out. People are just throwing out content that is.
Yeah, but again, like you talk about, like the turning point, even reality television is a huge turning point in the film industry, because you're taking it to where you just have, it's kind of scripted, loosely scripted. People are just filming it, and that takes a huge element out of what it takes to bring something into existence. And some people would say that is garbage television and whatnot, but you see MTV, to where it was all music videos at one point, and then we're like, why is this reality shows now in here? And I love the music videos. I think there was a lot of people that love that. It was like, wait, people are liking this too much. We just need to use the eyes on this to then now let's distract the attention over here. But I think even reality, you see YouTube, people are creating their own content, and there's some great content being created, but as a content creator, sometimes I look at this as, this is my motivation to keep going, because if these people have made it, there's no reason why we can't. You know what I mean? Everybody's got a shot.
No, exactly. And, my comment on reality TV is basically, I think it's garbage as well, but, one only needs to look at the Colosseum and, the Christians being slaughtered by lions and gladiators and all of that to realize that, people are driven by this type of entertainment. People want sensational entertainment. But,
I
let's
think
get back to, go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to comment on the sensational television with some of the reality stuff. It's a lot of drama going back and forth. Like, to me, I've entered a room when some of that stuff's going on. I'm like, how's somebody watching this? Because it's kind of very, very negativity driven with the drama. And to me, it's like, this is really what people want to watch. I mean, I don't know. I think it's, I guess they run the numbers and this is what people want to see, but we can do better.
Yeah, it's a poor reflection, I think, on us as a society. But, back to the turning point of the film industry, I think that, we
Right.
probably wouldn't be here talking about this topic if it hadn't been for the pandemic, because people were driven to finding alternative forms of entertainment as a result of the pandemic. They couldn't go to theaters anymore. And so, I think a lot of
Well, I mean,
people... Go ahead, Chris.
yeah, I just didn't want to but the pandemic for sure is a point where two things happened, in my opinion. The problem was for the producers, and I saw that here in the studio in Babelsberg as well. It was really hard to get, with all these restrictions that you had and security rules and so on, to make a good production on the one hand. So content production was getting harder, no doubt about that. But on the other hand, people, they couldn't go to the theaters, but they used streaming services like, never before. And let's say movie producers had the chance to push their stuff that they wanted to release on cinema to the platforms, and maybe it saved them, because without the platforms, without the internet and so on, well, there hadn't been a big chance for releasing their movies at all. So the pandemic had two sides, in my opinion, for the industry.
Only two sides? It seems like, to me, it's like there was actually like 8 sides. Because there was a lot of undertone stuff that was going on behind the scenes. That a lot of Zoom meetings, I think, that people really enjoyed.
Well, yeah, and I think that, just goes back to the fact that, people had to become technologically savvy as a result of the pandemic. And, there were many people that prior to the pandemic had never been on a Zoom meeting, or, hadn't subscribed to Netflix, or, weren't aware of what was on YouTube.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden had to get into it. And
some people got into VR.
Absolutely.
Good point.
100% adopting technology. It's the point. If you have all the technologies, and VR was there before the pandemic, right? We had the chance to use that stuff already, at least from 2014 or something. The very first things that were on the market then, and now people were jumping on it to see, like, oh, there's an opportunity. There's a technology that can help me, and that's a good thing, basically. Again, for sure. For producing films, it was really, really hard to do it. And I'm very happy that it's over in this case.
Yeah, it seems like it's just evolved. There's just other problems. Once everything was going to get stabled, now we're into AI comes in, and the writer's strike, you start seeing the GPT chat, to where somebody can write a script with a few different prompts, and everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute here. We are at a major turning point. So the pandemic was one thing, and now we're literally going down a whole nother road where you're like, this technology is so powerful.
Yeah, but there are two different things. One, we did predict that a pandemic would occur within a specific time period. I mean, that, you know, and I say we, the intelligence community, were concerned about this, but we didn't have dates or times, obviously. But, you know, there was a pandemic coming and there's another one coming. But, you know, that's not something that one can predict. With the film industry, however, you know, I think that the problem that I see is that one can predict it, one can think strategically, but people refuse to. You know, we talk about streaming, for instance, and YouTube and all of that as a disruptive technology, and yet we forget that, you know, people in the past, and probably still do, I have to admit here that I haven't been to a theater for many, many, many years, but, you know, people do go to the theater to watch streamed sporting events, streamed music events. And so, you know, I think we forget that. And, you know, if one is thinking strategically, one should also be thinking, well, if people are going to this stuff and they can get it at home by paying, you know, $10 or $20 or $30, which will they do? And I think, you know, we really need to get to the bottom of why do people even go to the theater. I think in some ways it's an entertainment experience, but it's also a social experience. It gets people out of the house.
It is. I was at the theater last night. And you know, when a movie just comes out, there's an energy of being in the theater with other people and the laughing and the entertainment. It's that social experience. I feel like even the film industry needs to evolve a little bit with the theaters to create those experiences, and I think that they're trying for it. It hasn't quite evolved to what it's going to evolve with, but I enjoy going to the theater. I do, because it's like you don't have all the distractions of your house, and it's like, you know, just focus. You know, I think that's why people, when you start getting up there with a 3-hour film, they don't have the time and attention because they're like, I'm used to looking at my phone every 5 to 10 minutes. So it's like you're keeping me away from it for too long of a period of time.
Although that brings to mind that dude that got shot in a theater because he was looking at his phone.
Seriously,
America, right? So, Chris,
that's a different thing.
Yes. An entirely different
mystery. I'm curious to what you paid for your theater ticket, because, you know, we're also looking at one of the contributing factors as being the increase in price. I
love that question, because actually the person that I went and seen Barbie yesterday. And the person that I went and seen it with, and it actually laughed quite a few times, but full price for the ticket was going to be like $13, and when we had the conversation, it was like, for on Tuesdays you can go see a film for $5, and we seen like the theaters were full, so it was like we were going to go maybe at like 6, 7, 8, 9. We ended up having to go see the 10:30 show because we booked later on in the day, which to me showed there's a lot of people that wanted to see the movie, but they would wait to pay less money on going to the theater on a day they're going to get a deal to sit in these comfortable seats. So I think that there is still a want to go to the theater, but I think people are their money's tighter than they want to believe that it is, and they're kind of like, I don't know, they want to be selective with where they're spending it.
You make a good point about money, because one of the, I think, phenomena that we're seeing is that everyone wants a slice of the pie. And so, you know, if you subscribe to Netflix, that's, you know, X dollars. If you subscribe to Prime, that's X dollars. And it just, you know, gets to a point where it becomes too expensive. It's...
Well, I also think people justify not going to the theater because they have all these subscriptions as well. And they're already like, I'm spending all this money over here. We'll just wait for it to come out over there. And I think that's also a factor.
Oh, for sure.
That's a good point.
For sure it is.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, we really have seen a lot of changes in the film industry, and that, I mean, to me, that's why I don't go to the theater, because I know eventually it'll either be a couple of dollars to watch it in the comfort of my home or free to watch it on one of the channels I subscribe to. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. The money, and we have to see that people are consuming a lot because they can. As you said, you have a subscription for 4, 5, 6 channels, whatever. And in that case, yeah, I mean, you have the choice maybe from thousands of titles, and you can watch them whenever you want. You can stop and hold them whenever you want. So this it's a complete different thing with video on demand, right? And
right.
there's even more if we think back to these contributing factors to this big change in the industry. And um, I think this one point of that you can find a lot of special content that is posted completely for free to YouTube channels that is not connected to any franchise, that is not connected to any
Yeah.
brand, that is not connected to any studio. It's not Star Trek, it's not Star Wars, it's not whatever, right? It's maybe also a fan film, right? Done
Yeah.
about something, right? This is very special content that you will just be able to find on YouTube, on Twitch, on whatever,
Yeah.
right? And people like it. And that is taking also a lot of attention from classic
Oh
movies
yeah.
or classic television or productions, let's say, right? And this
Oh
is also
yeah.
a contributing factor, in my opinion, for this huge change that we have, because this user-generated content that is getting better and better, right,
It
is
is. It
getting
is.
huge. And as you stated already, a mystery is that with AI and other technologies, also this content is getting much better and more
Yeah.
professional in the future.
It
This is a
is.
good.
And
Go ahead.
well, my last the thing with YouTube is, I'd really like to run some numbers because there's a crazy amount of content being created and uploaded daily to YouTube. So much so that it's just hard to get the eyeballs on it. And how many people actually make money on YouTube per year? I think it'd be very interesting to see the statistics of how many people make under $1,000 at YouTube, no money, under $1,000 at YouTube, and then the people that are, there's obviously some influencers making a ton of money there. I think that would be an interesting
Definitely.
statistic to kind of look at.
Good. Well, I think
The
this is a
business
good.
model.
Go ahead, Chris. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
just
Definitely
the business
needs to be
model
a
is
business model.
no, just it must be a business model, or should be, or for some people it has to be, but also the business model in how to create content and how to get it monetized changed so heavily, right? Think back when in the old days, maybe not that long ago, um, if you wanted to make a movie or whatever, you needed some
Oh
funding, a
yeah.
producer, a company, whatever. That was the way to go. Bring in the money, bring in the actors and the director and the crew, and do the post-production in the end, and then, well, release it somehow. Today, we have so many more possibilities, and also the funding is different. Maybe you have a channel that is bringing in money and gives constant
Yeah.
flow that you can go and say, let's make it serious. We have enough money coming in. We have enough subscribers. We have Patreons or whatever. Or we just go for one project and try to get some money in from a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever, right? Also, that is a complete new, I mean, how long do we have Kickstarter projects now? 10 years, 15 years, whatever, right? It's still quite new, right? And but it's disruptive for an industry like the film industry, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, that was a disruptor that I believe was introduced by the Obama administration, allowing this type of investment through
Oh, okay.
Kickstarter and other like entities without having to register as security and all of that. Maybe a topic for another
That's
show one
interesting.
of these days.
No, it is definitely.
I think this is a good segue into slide 4, because we're talking about things like how people now all of a sudden can produce content very easily.
Yeah.
And one of the methodologies that we've been talking about amongst ourselves, for example, is onion skinning, which is used to create the between or in between frames in an animation. And that traditionally was done by having one image and then having an artist create in between images. And the term onion skinning was because the paper was translucent that was laid on top of the image to create the multiple images. Now this can be done by computer in split seconds. And so a good example of how technology has changed what filmmakers can do.
Yeah, you even look at from an animated standpoint of what the studios, how the process, just how it's advanced is amazing. Go ahead, Chris.
Definitely, exactly. That is the point. We have this change, and let's call it automation in these processes for quite a long time. When, as you already said, when you think back when Walt Disney started making his types of animated movies, well, yeah, everything was hand drawn and everything was hand colored, right? So a lot of people had to work on this, and then you had something like a photographer that laid down all these different things on top of each other, stacking them, and then moving the camera on top of that to have some moves in and out, and so on and so on and so on. A lot of work, and then computers started. I would say that was the late 70s when computer graphics and animation in computers were really slightly taking off. And we saw this huge jump that was happening with companies like ILM and Pixar was a part of ILM in the beginning. And then we had this extreme jump in Toy Story, for example, right? A completely 3D generated movie. And I still remember 1995, I think, people thought like, oh, is it any good? Can you do a 90 minutes movie just with 3D animation? Is that possible? And you saw like, oh, yes, it was possible. 100%.
Yeah, very good job, too.
Yeah, and the barrier to... Go ahead, Eric.
Just the motion capture that you have up there as well. Like, this is just... We're kind of waiting for it to get, even with that barrier of entry where you're going to go, it's getting to the point where the motion capture suits are going to be there with a VR headset and really being able to put people in environments and interact as these characters. We don't know how close it is, but it's definitely interesting how that's coming. And that was technology that if you're talking about, going back to the 90s, or it's just was so expensive to do. So the fact that people it's going to be accessible to people in I don't know how many years, but sooner than later, if you're really wanting to do it, it's powerful.
Well, right now
Definitely.
I mean, a year ago, the main mocap suit was the Tesla suit, which I believe was around $10,000. Today, from Rococo, one can get a full body motion capture, facial capture, hand capture outfit, if you will, or kit for under $4,000. And so, the price has dropped, and we're also starting to see both Rococo, Deep Motion, and other companies are providing motion capture by enabling you to stand in front of a camera, recording the motion, and then translating it into a mocap file, which can then be applied to a character in Real Illusions, iClone, or Unreal, or other.
Could you imagine sitting down with somebody showing them the future, somebody like a Disney animator, and showing them like what you just said, them seeing it happen, like something that it would take them months to do of work to just be done like.
Well, Eric, here I think is a difference in a certain way. When we talk about animation, and when you think about a Pixar animator or someone from Disney or whatever, and you think about motion capturing, these are really two different things. Motion capturing is if you really want a character, a 3D character, for example, to move exactly like the person moves, right?
Yeah.
But the animation that is done by hand also, and Pixar animation is done a lot by hand, and they do have the capabilities and possibilities by technology for a long time, but they still do it with classic animation because they are not wanting this type of, oh, it looks exactly like a human being was moving. And try, for example, let's say Finding Nemo. How would you like to capture Nemo? It's a bit hard to capture fish, isn't it? I mean, you could try, but you know, right? No, but
I mean, that's a good point. You know, somebody running around a studio and making it appear that the person's swimming in the ocean, that could be slightly challenging.
It could be, and you know, the special thing here is, and you have to think about those movies are really taking years in development, and they have a lot of people that are working for years to just work on one character and how does this character move and where are the specialties and so on and so on. And that is an art form in itself, right?
Oh, 100%.
So motion capture for sure is a technology for everything that is quite naturalistic, right? If you say I need a human being in a film or whatever, and it must be animated, you could go still for, okay, no, let's take the limbs and the hands and animate them by hand, or take the motion capture suit and do that in, I don't know, some seconds, right?
No, totally. And good animation stands the test of time. Like I watched within the last X amount of time The Mask that Disney did with Jim Carrey. And the animation that Disney did with that was still, you watch it today, and that movie could have just been made now, and it would still look amazing. You're just like, wow. So, you know, when you do spend the time, you really get something that's good quality piece of work.
Yeah, but you know, I think that brings up the argument that you know, and I think a perfect illustration of this is that around, I think it was 2013 or so, we started to see a move from celluloid to digital. So, 35 millimeter, 70 millimeter physical film, celluloid film, was being abandoned for digital. There are still some purists out there that won't move to digital, Christopher Nolan, for example. But the majority of the industry, at least from what I can see, has moved to digital. And,
from a cost standpoint, though, it's just, you look at, if you were to bring out price differences between the cost of the two, unfortunately, the studio people, they're looking at the bottom dollar. And very few people are going to get the budget to where, yep, we're going to give you film.
Well, it complicates matters because we have a hybrid environment now where some theaters have, film and some don't. And so, you have to remaster stuff that's shot on actual film to video, and it just becomes complicated. So,
for sure, it's getting complicated. Sorry, but I think there's another point that we have to take into consideration here, and that is that today, now the quality of a digital image is definitely higher than the resolution on a cellular film, because we can go up to whatever insane and amazing bit depth and sizes of a picture with I don't know, 16K or anything else, and this is really hard to capture on on cellular film. Sure, we can do that with IMAX and so on. Yes, but this is really getting insanely expensive in the end. And I guess digital images will still grow. You know, the chips are growing, and also the bit depths, the color depths is also getting more and more. We have more data that we're collecting, so we have more color depths that we can work on. It's it's there's definitely a technology difference now, and classic film will not be able to keep up here.
Right, and I think the same thing applies to, as we see on the slide here, the evolving industry. One of the things that I see evolving is the actual film sets, which I think we've already proved as the virtual film company. One can create film sets in Unity, Unreal, whatever, and they look as realistic, in my opinion, as a realistic set would look. And now we're moving into realistic human beings, and we see epics, meta-humans, real illusions, real skin, where all of a sudden these characters have skin that is human looking. And I really personally believe that at some point it's going to be very hard to tell the difference between one of these characters and a human being. Sorry to say, but
why are you sorry to say? Because people are going to confuse what reality is, and we're living in the Matrix, John?
no, because there's some people that have been, or I should say some actors, entertainers that have been proactive and have already licensed their likeness and their voice, but there's others that are pushing back against this, just like people pushing back against digital. We want celluloid, we refuse to go to digital. We refuse to, it's just, we've seen these things.
Turning point. Definitely a turning point, though.
No, definitely. So let's move on to slide 5.
Well, before you go to that, the last thing I wanted to say that you see on the bottom, we didn't even mention, was AI editing was on that final bullet point there. And to me, some of this stuff is magical. I use primarily the Adobe suite, and some of these enhanced filters to clean up audio that would normally take long periods of time. It's becoming more intelligent to where, okay, you can bring in an entire project that was shot and it can go in there and put all the cuts in there. Like, to me, that is so amazing that we have these, again, it's assisting us to just make it to where we can get more done. Just some really powerful stuff happening, even with AI editing, to go in and even clean up, like, the spots of the ums and dead air. Like, this is powerful to where you still got to go in there and get your hands dirty, but at least you're able to go in more efficient.
Oh, definitely. I mean, those tools, those machine learning and AI tools are in the editing and also in animation and so on for a long time, basically, right? We use them also heavily in gaming productions. You wouldn't have any AI enemies you can shoot somewhere if there's no, let's say, even quite dumb, but artificial intelligence behind it, right?
Right.
And having these technologies on just ImageWorks in post-production for a long time, like if you just want to rotoscope some objects or whatever, and normally you have to draw the lines and do that. I did that on movies, right, in visual effects, and we had to rotoscope tons of stuff out there. It was a long process, 1995 or when that was. And now you have tools that can, you click on find this object and whoops, it's done, right? And it's done over 200 frames within 10 seconds. So,
And honestly, that was work that's work that there was not a lot of people lined up that wanted to do that work, Chris. Like,
That's the point.
it's like a very tedious thing. Like, who's going to do all this rotoscope? And there wasn't a lot of people putting their hands up excited about it.
Well,
I
that's the
would
point.
disagree with that, actually. I really would disagree with that. I think, when that first came out, it was like on the computer at least. And, I'm sure, I mean, we talked about onion skinning before, and I'm sure there were people, that sat there all day doing in-betweening that thought to themselves, man, this is like tedious. And, there's going to be people that complain about stuff all the time. But,
That's true.
just being able to do it and see it materialize, to me, that's the magic of it is, and that's where
Definitely.
digital just really shines, is
Yeah.
that
It's
you can
true.
see stuff and you can make stuff quicker than you could ever before, and the quality, in my opinion at least, is matching the quality of what a studio or a small studio was able to do, say, 10 years ago. One can do now on a reasonably good computer.
Thank you for
Definitely.
calling it out, John, because that's the truth. That's the truth. Because actually, that was a turning point when the technology came out, and people were excited about it that you could do it. It was just, I'm going to more of the point where there was definitely some tediousness when you're doing a ton of it. So, anyways, this is where we're at now, the future.
No, and it is tedious. I mean, writing, for example, anything can become tedious, and it's
Yes.
To me, it's a breath of fresh air where I could use GPT chat to put together a script or an article or whatever, and then spend my time refining it and making it something really, really
Exactly.
good, rather than getting bogged down in let's try to
Exactly.
develop this idea, which will take hours, and a day later I've written a good article, and now I can do it in an hour. So
yes,
anyway.
100%.
I mean, think about when you do research for a documentary film, or maybe you want to make something like a new thriller about a certain time period. Let's say I want to make a thriller about the Nazi period in Germany, for example, and I want to write some historical characters in there that are having maybe some small scenes. And now I have the possibility to use something like ChatGPT or something else to say, hey, help me with, is this situation, somehow logic or not? Like, can you do some research about that figure?
Yeah.
Did this person do this or that? Is that known? Is that not known? So would that be logical or not? Otherwise, you would have to talk to historians and dig a long time into books and backgrounds and whatever. Now that I'm sure that you will find material about that historical stuff in the end, it's easier if an artificial intelligence can help you to sort out the stuff that you really need, right? So you're getting faster.
For sure. 100%. And, we have not addressed it right here yet, but on the top here, like, to me, this is one of the most hot, controversial things with the turning point, this cloning actors with audio and video. So for me, what I see is, I think some of the cool things that could really be done that's powerful is going back in time and taking like a Buster Keaton or a Charlie Chaplin and some of these silent films and whatnot, and really being able to recreate some of these worlds that these people existed in these films, and you could go in and interact with these people who are icons that they've got a star on the Walk of Fame, and they've done this contribution as an artist, and being like, hey, we're going to, almost give them a new life and bring them back. I think that's one of the possibilities that could be done with this. That's powerful, to have conversations with some of the people of the past.
I mean, think about we did parts of that stuff. For example, I mean, we had a 3D animated Terminator, Arnold
Albert
Schwarzenegger,
Einstein.
right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah, like famous actors that were still alive, already deceased. And
Yeah.
I remember the first part when someone was cloned, and that was for the movie The Crow. I think that was
Mm.
Brandon Lee, wasn't that
Yep.
the
Brandon
son
Lee.
of right of Bruce Lee, who was shot on the set by
Yeah.
accident, and then they had to finish the movie, and then they took just at that time a image compositing, and created scenes with some stand-ins or whatever, and then superimposed his face on it and animated
Mm.
and whatever just to get it done. But basically, it was
Mm-hmm.
like cloning this actor. And today,
Mm-hmm.
well, it can be done automatically, right? There's not a big bunch of VFX technicians needed to do that. So it's just getting faster, but we're doing that quite for a while. But still, nobody ever wanted to make a Charlie Chaplin movie with a 3D animated Charlie Chaplin character. So not that I know. Do you know
Mm.
something like this? Is anything ever came to you where you saw something like that someone tried to recreate a famous
No,
character that died?
no, I'm speaking more of what I actually see the real value of the cloning of the actors. You know, you've got a lot of different trusts that still represent these people. Hollywood Walk of Fame. You know, you kind of look at some of these old stars, and the star is broken and cracked and whatnot. So you're going, what's going on with where we can't take care of these stars of the past? They've created stuff. They need to be honored properly. And to say that their star can't be maintained, there's not enough money that maybe they're generating from residuals or from what they've done. So if they have a star there, I just see it as even creating to where they could welcome you to their star on the Walk of Fame in like the metaverse. Like there's just some really like that's I guess I'm giving more examples of where I see it going rather than what I've seen done so far as a powerful what can be done with these things.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris, though. I mean, one hasn't seen it, and, I think people are, we've kind of programmed society to focus on, the new and the best and the coolest and all of that. And,
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It would be another, we're coming up with more show topics. Why haven't some of these older movies being created? And maybe it is, as you say, that, there's such a lock on the original content that nothing can be done. So, I think
Yeah.
in future, though, we're going to see hybrid environments, a mixture of 3D cartoons, in real life footage. And we've already seen some
Yeah.
of that in movies, but I think that's really where it's going to go. And
Well, and we've talked about that stuff, John, and I do feel like that's actually going to be part of the movie making process is to have a hybrid environment, whether it's an augmented reality, almost maybe at the movie theater that you would go into there and be able to go in and experience it. And they create a part of the world that you're going to be either in the movie or whatnot, and creating that experience, really being able to connect with these, whether it's the actor or the brand, that's coming. Like, I feel like that's what's part of being in an immersive space, and the power of it, that's definitely got to be where it's going.
right. Well, we're running out of time here, so let's move to our next slide, which we've really talked about already, and that's, what does the public want? And, we can talk about that a little bit more here, but I think we've pretty much done this one to death. But it's,
No,
interesting that this... No? Okay. Go ahead.
I think we all have a comment on it. I mean, I think we should all comment on what our thoughts are on this thing. Less than 60 minutes. That's a TV show nowadays that I feel like that's a sweet spot that people who watch a lot of television know, hey, you're committed for like an hour. 60 to 90 is like, to me, that's more of the traditional comedy. Like, okay, you're going to sit down for that period of time. Now, as you start getting up and you see the red, that's when most people are like, okay, I'm good with that. But I feel like even getting to the 2-hour marker, people at that point, that's, I've seen a couple movies that the runtime is 3 hours, getting up close to 3 hours. And I have decided not to see it because I just don't want to put that time commitment with the previews and everything like that and getting there. Seeing the film is a 4-hour deal. So I don't know. I feel like some of these movies, it's like, make it 2 parts. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be like, maybe you don't need to put it all out at one time. Make it 2 films instead of 1 2-hour-and-a-half movies.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, go ahead, Chris.
No, I just want to say absolutely. I mean, it depends a lot. If you are making a long film, think about Dune, that is made now into 2 parts, right?
Yep.
And the first Dune movie by David Lynch, he had an edit. I saw a documentary in last week's. That was in the beginning 4 hours or something. Like, it's a complex story, but who's going to sit down for 4 hours? And it's demanding, and if you're pushing content and more details to the people, well, I mean, you cannot follow that. You get maybe not bored, but you get exhausted somehow. So that is too much.
Well, if he wants to make it that long, instead of being 4 hours, say, hey, listen, these are great characters. Let's bump it to 5 hours. And now we'll make that 3 movies, 3 1.5-hour movies. Here you go.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. And again, today, nobody is forced to go to a cinema. You can say, well, I've got the 3 movies here and I can watch them, binge them if I want to. Right. But I can also say, well, they are dramatically generated, and let's take the first one, and next weekend let's take the second one, and some days later take the third one. You can do it as you want, and again, you've got the possibilities of video on demand. So I think that the studios and the producers and the directors and authors, they should start to play more with this, like give them possibilities, maybe make different versions of a film. Maybe not just say this is one movie, maybe have 3 versions of a movie, a more detailed one and a shorter one. Why not? I mean, you're shooting. Why don't put out 3 different, completely not different in context, but different
3 different edits.
In making.
3 different edits.
3 different edits, exactly. Like we had that so many times with the final cut. And the director's cut, right? Why not doing that on purpose in the beginning, and trying to address other people with it?
Yes.
Well, we will see how this whole industry ends up evolving, and so let's move on to slide 7 right now, which is film 3, and we're just going to talk about this one very briefly as we only have 7 minutes left. So, film 3 is basically the buzzword for what's happening in the alternative film industry, if you will, today. And, it's based on a concept called third cinema, which basically is an anti-Hollywood effort that started in the 1950s. And, I wonder how many film 3 advocates actually know that. But the word of caution that I'm going to throw out here is that film 3 is indeed a buzzword, and it's also tied into the blockchain. And so, just be very cautious in terms of that. So let's move on to the next slide, which, basically I think brings home, this is slide 8, and brings home what we've been talking about with AI, where recently we saw a South Park episode being created in, 20 minutes, I think it
They're
was. I
so
can't remember how
difficult.
long.
They're so difficult. These characters are so difficult. The animation is so advanced on South Park. Have you seen it? Have you seen an
Well,
episode like these
yeah,
characters, the way the mouth moves and the little hands? I mean, this is complicated. I think Disney people would marvel at how they're able to do this, pull it off.
well, that's one of the things that, I think always gave me hope when we did our shows on Alt Space VR was people used to come in and say, wow, this is just like The Simpsons. And, it gave me
Yeah.
hope because,
Simpsons
The Simpsons and South Park are, Simpsons is definitely a step up on South Park, in my opinion. I'm probably going to get all kinds of hate mail for saying that. But,
Well,
I guess so too, John.
Anyway,
No, I really have
Jim.
to say here, I'm sorry about that, South Park is a very special piece of art for itself, in my opinion, right?
Yes.
It's a statement. It's
I love how fast they can turn it around. It's amazing.
Yeah,
turnaround time.
definitely. So
go ahead.
No, but we really have to see here that it's not the complexity. It must not be like Cinderella. I think that was one of the most technically complex animation films ever made, probably because they animated really everything frame by frame. And it
I thought it was Fantasia, but yes.
Yeah, at that time they did really, really, really complex animations at Disney, for example. But I think the quality of an animated movie or series is not just how great the animation of the character is in the end. That's one part. That is one part. And here it's really a piece of a statement, piece of art.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely South Park is a marvel in itself. It's a whole... the way it kind of South Park is a turning point of animation. To have a topic happening in the world and they're banging out an episode, it's coming out 1 week, 2 weeks later, they're talking about something that in the world we're dealing with. This is powerful, it's undeniable, like what they're able to do.
Sure.
So that's amazing.
Well, this topic, is just so fascinating that next week we're going to continue with this topic for all of those that are watching. And, remember, we're the Virtual Film Company, and you can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. But, next week we're going to add to what we're talking about, and Mystery already alluded to the fact that the writers and artists or actors rather, are on strike. Hollywood writers and actors are on strike. And, in our opinion, that is also changing the film industry because it's making these people look at things like AI and character generation and technologies like that and, forcing them to ask themselves, how is this going to affect my career and what skills do I need to develop to continue to be in the entertainment industry?
100%. Unfortunately, I think as a SAG actor, I think the film studios are on high alert with developing technologies, where things are going. They're not sitting around doing nothing. So I think it's a very interesting time, and it's how long is this going to go on for? What is the ultimate resolution going to be? I'm interested to see if we can talk to somebody who's actually out on the picket lines and find out just like from the source, like what is it like down there? What is everybody wanting to do? I did see that there is some films that are being taken place right now. They are ones that are operating under whatever the new guidelines they're asking actors to have. So I'm interested on all of those things too, because the productions could continue right now. So it doesn't need to be completely shut down. If you're going to
unfortunately, Mystery, I'm going to have to cut you off.
Yep.
And if there's anyone out there that would like to comment on this, we invite you to join us as a guest next week. We're here on Spatial every Wednesday at noon Eastern time, and this was filmed by Carlos Austin Productions, who's been helping us live stream. And again, this has been a great show. Next week, we're going to continue to talk about the evolution of the film industry, and we'll be focusing on the writers and actors strike. And again, if there's anyone out there that wants to join us from Hollywood and let us know your point of view, you're very welcome on the show. So thank you, everyone, for watching today. It's really been informative. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mystery. Thank you,
Thanks,
those
John.
in our audience,
Yeah.
Jolly, and others, and those watching.
See you next time, guys. Thanks a lot for watching.
Yes.